What's up YouTube, Capital G here, talking July ban list in this video for the TCG. I just have to say July because we don't have an effective official start date for the list. If you look on the official website of Konami for their ban list, it just has April 1st as our start date, but it doesn't have the date that it runs through. Now, I personally believe it's going to be July 14th, 2015, and I say that because if you look at the WCQs for North America and South America, the timing makes sense. You can't have this list start on July 1st because even though the North American Nationals is the 26th through the 28th of June this month, the timeline seems perfect for that. The next week is the South American Nationals, and you can't have the North American Nationals under one list and then the next week the South American Nationals be playing under a completely different ban list. Like, that just doesn't make any sense. After the South American Nationals, Konami doesn't have a major planned event until Gen Con, YCS Indianapolis, so it makes perfect sense for them to just kind of throw us this list in the second week of July. Now, these are certain things that I think will happen, some things that I think should happen, some things that I think could happen. It's always kind of impossible to predict Konami. Again, Stratos was banned in the TCG for some stupid ass reason. And I think that this list is mainly going to be cleanup, and I think that it's going to be a lot of anticipationary hits. So for starters, banned cards, the only card that I have banned is Royal Magical Library. I think a lot of people will probably say, what about Gen? Gen's starting to become like less and less consistent in the TCG for Necros. A lot of players are just kind of dropping it because Bull Blader, Double Dark Hole, Regeki, all that jazz. And it's not really good against Cleaford like at all. But I think Royal Magical Library is one of those cards that probably should have been banned already. Eventually, more FTKs and OTKs will pop up. So it's like, even if you are saying Exodius inconsistent, we're obviously talking about Chicken Race FTK. This card is a staple in the deck at 3, and it's a card that you can't play skillfully. I mean, it has zero freaking attack. There's no way that Konami ever planned on you being able to sustain this card. You have to summon it in an attack position, but it doesn't matter. If you're playing it in an FTK, OTK, you only have to sustain the card for one turn. Like, you don't care that your opponent can attack your Royal Magical Library next turn because they're not going to get a next turn. So the card is, in my opinion, the one card in the game that should be banned right now. For our limiteds, we have Manju, Sanju, Unicorn, Denko, Seka, Stratos, DMOC, Tribe Infecting Virus, Instant Fusion, what's it called, El Shaddai Construct, and Wind Up Carrier Zim Mighty. That does seem like a lot, but you have to look at 4 of the cards are kind of like Necros centric, and then 3 of them are cards that should be unbanned. So it's really not that many when you think about it. Manju and Senju are kind of tight at the hip with Necros. I think this game has way too much searching in it. Necros is a deck that already has a lot of inherent searching, but to give the decks just like instant gratification cards. I know that these cards came out way before Necros, but these are instant gratification. You just summon them, you instantly get to whatever you want, and then you make your play. If you look at the Sibia archetype, they have searchers too, but they have to like set them and they have to flip, and you know what I mean? At least it's a little slower. With these guys, you can just summon them, get your card, attack with them, make exceeds with them. It's a little too much in my opinion. I know that it is collateral damage to other ritual decks like Herald of Perfection, but it is what it is. Those decks aren't really taken that seriously when it comes to the competitive game anyway. Necros of Unicorn, I actually went back and forth with this in Kaleido Mirror, but I figured this was probably the better hit because this is the card that really does lock down players who need to use their extra decks, which Konami has spent like the last, I don't know, 6 years like creating nothing but decks that do that. You know what I mean? The Spirit Beast, the Teller Knights, the Burning Abyss, the Shadows. Like, this is the one card that just basically says, nope, none of your extra deck monsters do anything. So this card plus protection is really, really difficult to get over. And plus, I think if Unicorn went to 1 as opposed to Kaleido Mirror going to 1, I don't think it would be that big of a thing. Like, I think that players would just add 3 Colossalists, they would add back Decisive Armor, they would add back Gunneer if they're not running those, and then the deck would be perfectly fine. Denko Seka really is what players say that it is. It's like a cold wave on legs. To be honest, all it really took to exploit this card was just decks that didn't need to run back row. You could have either a deck that inherently works that way, like Necros, because to my knowledge, there are no Necros themed traps, or you could just have a deck like Shadows. Even though Shadows were given traps like Core and Sinister Shadow games, they just were like, all right, well, we don't really need our traps. We'll just OTK you, and then the Denko will just like serve its purpose because all your back row is just completely irrelevant. So, I mean, it works in that way. And plus, when you have like this and this, like these two on board, you're locking down so much of the game. You know, it used to be, oh, well, what if I just attack over it, capital G? But it's like if you have Valkyries, which this deck can get to at any point, then all right, well, now you can't attack over it and you can't set traps. So all you're pretty much reduced to is spells, unless, I mean, you can't use extra deck monsters because of this card. Or same thing would be like if you had Colossus or whatever. Denko just does a little too much, to be honest. Next up, we have Stratos, Democ, Tribe Infecting Virus. Tribe Infecting Virus is just not a good card anymore. People might argue with me until they're blue in the face, but I mean, come on. The card was seen play in 2014. That was when Sinister Serpent was like still good. That is when the game didn't have the game wasn't nearly as fast back during the Scapegoat format. And honestly, it's just the card has been banned for, I believe, a full decade now. It's just not even a good card to have to commit your normal summon to commit a card from your hand just to destroy one type of monster. Like, I don't even care if you can't be, the fact that it's not once per turn, like, doesn't matter. You can't kill face downs. You can't search this card from any way possible. That I know of anyways. Like, I'm sure there are some obscure ways out there, but none of them are practical. So I think that Trivirus needs to come back. This is Tsukiyumi and Magician of Faith all over again. Democ has been errated in the OCG. I expect the TCG to get the same errata. With it being that you can't use the spell during the same turn that you get it, perfectly fine. Honestly, I think Democ could have came back already, but with the errata, it's like it's a wrap. You got to bring Democ back at least at one. Other than Infernoids, I really don't know what would run it. I think World of Prophecy is better in Prophecy in like 90% of situations. So honestly, I think that's probably Infernoids and that's it. And maybe Christia might even be better in that deck. Stratos, obligatory, just should have never been banned. I'm almost sick of saying that. For more of cards that need to be hit or cards that probably should be hit, kind of like a precaution, Instant Fusion. If we have Nodin running around at 3+3 Instant Fusions, the rank 4 C spam is going to get out of control. You have to remember, Clownblade is like in the next set. It's right around the corner, and it's going to be right around the time that we get Nodin. Like, I don't think that people are going to enjoy having Clownblade at 4 strength, plus having Nodin at 3 and Instant Fusion at 3, plus potentially the Star Sereps all at 3 too. Like, that's just going to be incredibly crazy. I think just go ahead, hit Instant Fusion at 1. No need to even hit Nodin, because with one Instant Fusion, I don't really see anybody summoning multiple Nodins. For our other limited cards, we have El Shaddai Construct. I think that this one is going to happen. And I think that if you hit Necros, like if you hit them a little more, like Shadows could instantly become like the definitive best deck in the game. I feel like their Shadows are way too reliant on this card. Even when like Shadows had one Construct in the OCG, they still did perfectly fine. And I think that like Construct does so much for the deck because it's a huge beater. It kills any special summon monster. It dumps a card when it's summoned. Like, it does so much for the deck. Like, it completely has outshined all the other Shadow fusions. Like, no one will ever use Grista as long as there's 3 Construct. People don't even barely use Winda that much anymore. Like, when's the last time you seen somebody actually need 3 Windas in a duel? Like, you never see that shit. You run through 3 Constructs in a duel a lot of times. So the card probably needs to go to 1. But I think the deck would still be perfectly fine without it, especially now that they have like a Noitilus. Like, I think the deck would be perfectly fine. Windups and Mighty, they have this at 2 in the OCG and nobody plays Windup. So I actually think this card should be at 2. Just mimic the OCG. But for a card to go to ban to 2 doesn't make any sense in one format. So I think at least just bring it to 1. I really don't think that Windups would do much of anything because this card doesn't really facilitate any plays that like impact the game right now. I mean, even with like wind up Magician at 2 and stuff, like you're just making a whole bunch of random Xyzs that are like none of them have protection at all. And without Shockmaster, you don't have a way of like locking down your opponent from anything. This is a card I put in the middle, Rhoda, because I'm kind of unsure whether it should be at 2 or 1. The game has way too much searching as it is. It needs to kind of slow down. And with Clownblade coming out soon, this is coming from a Tellarknight player. With Necros already playing like a bunch of Rhodas and then to Tellarknights, I think that this card is like crazy splashable and it gives every deck like an infinite amount of speed to just get to whatever the fuck they want, whenever the hell they want. You know what I mean? I just think that this card kind of needs to be curbed. Like, I think it should go to 1, but I think that might be too harsh. Like, in the OCG, they have 1 Rhoda, and Clownblade is still, like, one of the best decks there. Probably the best deck. And in that deck, you get Thousand Blades, and you can get Photon Thrasher. So, I kind of think that Rhoda might need to go to 1. for the good of the game. For our limited or for our semi-limited cards, I have Magician or Wind Up Magician, Insector Hornet, Evac, Book of Moon. These two are kind of like tied at the hip. I hate bringing up the OCG so much, but they're both at 2 and nobody plays them. I play Insectors a lot on stream. The deck just isn't really that good. You can't make advantage for the most part with Hornet through an open field. It's just like, unless you have Gigamantis, it just doesn't work. And the deck is so reliant on getting, Dragonfly off that's like Hornet at 2 is not even going to make that big of a difference. Like Centipede is now like way too slow. And if all you can really do is just Centipede and Excalibur and just hope that you don't die, you're just not doing that much anymore. And the same, I kind of feel like the same thing about windups. They can go for those big plays with Zemite and Shark and Magician, but like a Torrential or Mirror Force and you lose. Like without Shockmaster to lock down your opponent, to say lock down spells against Necros, lock down traps so I can, you know, wreck you, I can get through your monsters. Like you're just not doing much. And the only play that the deck has to recover from, or to use as like the only recovery play the deck has, is Wind Up Rad. And I know that card's at 3, but still all it does is get you to a rank 3 XC, and the rank 3 XC pool is not as good as the rank 4 XC pool. The rank 4 XC pool can make advantage because you can go into like that Gusto Emerald and stuff. The rank 3 XC pool without like having a Dante level card is not that great in my opinion. Evac and Book of Moon. Okay, people have been asking for Book of Moon for forever. I kind of feel like it does need to go to 2. Maybe you could make the counter argument that the card has too much, like it has too much, like what's the word that I'm looking for? Too much versatility in one card because it puts monsters in their most vulnerable state. It breaks up plays. But honestly, we kind of need more good quick plays outside of this, Chalice, and maybe Enemy Controller, which nobody plays. How many other good quick plays do we have that you can just splash in the decks that actually stop your opponent's plays? Like, I don't think Forbidden Lance really stops your opponent's plays that much. I mean, maybe you could say that, but that'd only be 4 cards. We have way more traps. For Evac Device, I just think nobody plays this card anymore. Like, at 1, nobody plays it because, especially with Ring of Destruction coming back, like, why play Evac when you could play Ring and you could just, like, kill the monster permanently? I know you take battle or you take damage, but still, with Ring coming back, I feel like Evac has completely lost its utility. And then for the no longer limiteds, we have Sinister Serpent and Dragon's Ravine. Sinister Serpent is just, it's so terrible now. For a long time, I argued that it should have just came back to its original state. But now that they've errated it, like people didn't even try and play. That's the funny thing, is they errated Ring of Destruction and Crush Guard Virus, and you instantly saw people throw those in the decks. I'm talking about like YCS topping decks. You know, you saw Ring of Destruction, you see it a ton of places. You saw Crush Guard and Burning Abyss, but then like nobody even experimented with Sinister Serpent because the card is just so bad now. And then Dragon's Ravine, without the Dragon Rulers, there's just no way to abuse this card. Like with the Dragon Rulers, you could pitch a ruler, you could get to your Phalanx or Ducks, you could drop your rank 8 XC, and then you could still summon your Dragon Ruler that turn, and that'd be a lot of damage. But without the ability to make like free advantage with your Dragon Rulers, like pitching them every turn, there's no way to abuse this card. So it's like perfectly fair. And if it's a perfectly fair card, then like put it at 3. So let me know what you guys think. Trying to keep this video like under 14 minutes. I don't want to keep rambling on. If there are any other cards that you guys think I missed, just leave that in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching as always.